Hey, good morning gardeners. Today I'm going to show you how to do a complete water line change in your garden system. That would be from the pump all the way to the top of the garden, all three towers. Now to do this, you're going to need three things. You're going to need some water line. I'm using this green water line. I believe it's a 1 inch, or excuse me, a 1/4 inch internal diameter. And you're going to need this larger line. This is the line that will go from the pump to the splitter. And this is about the exact size that you will need, that exactly like the one that comes with the garden system. And then you're going to need a bag of these connectors like this. And the connectors look like this. There's different shapes and sizes in this bag, and I'm actually going to be replacing the elbow connector. I'm going to be replacing this elbow connector with a straight connector because I'm going to leave a little bit of extra tube up into the garden to make disassembly in the future a lot more easy. A couple of other tools that you will need. You're going to be needing a Phillips head screwdriver and a pair of scissors or something to cut the new tubing with. And I'm going to be using a red paint marker. What I'm going to do with the red paint marker is I'm going to number and letters, columns A, B, and C, and then number each of the segments coming down 1, 2, 3, etc. so that when I put them back together, they will be actually in the same place. And I'll show you how to thread the new line through the columns in case you ever just take your system apart and you want to be able to put it back together and say, how did I do that? How did I get it? How did I take it apart? How does it go back together? Even with the old line, this will show you how to put a tower back together so that you don't have to worry about, did I put it in the right hole? Is it going in the right place? So let's get started. So the first thing you're going to want to do with your garden is you're going to want to take the pump and lift it up and set it aside and lock it in. That way it gets it up out of the way. Now I've already drained the tank in this one, but you're also going to want to drain the tank or empty the tank in some way before you get started. So now I've taken a towel and I've placed it on the floor. And that'll be to capture any water. Although I don't have any water in the system, that'll give you a place to set the garden system, to set the top and the towers down so that you can begin doing the work. All right, so we're going to unplug the garden from the back after we've turned it off. And we're going to take and unlock both locks and gently lift the towers out of the basin. And we're going to set it on the towel, just like that. And I'm going to take the whole system and just lay it down on the ground. Now I'm going to take the garden and I'm going to letter and number each of the pieces so that when I put it back together, I will know which pieces go exactly where. You may or may not have to do this, but I think it would be helpful, at least for the tops and the bottoms, so that you know which part goes to which part. And now starting at the top, I'm just going to number and letter each of the segments all the way down so that I know how they go back together. And here's all the parts numbered and nicely lettered. Now I'm using D, E, and F because my first garden is A, B, and C. Now you can choose to do this part or not, but I'm going to be removing what I call the ice cream cones, which are the down tubes or the down drip sections that bring the water back down into the basin. Mine are kind of dirty, as you can see. And the way that you do this is there are 3 screws. You're going to carefully remove these 3 screws. There's one here, one up under here, and one there. By the way, this is the splitter, and I'm going to be replacing all of this hose and making these hoses longer so that they will reach up further into here and I'll not have to reach down in to this elbow. I'll use a straight instead, and you'll see that in just a minute. And then this is the hose that we're going to be replacing from the pump down. And we're going to be cleaning all of this and getting it all set up and refreshed. Going to do a complete garden refresh in the next day or so. When you're done, you're going to have all the ice cream cones removed and hanging off the hoses so that you can then pop the elbows apart and take the ice creams off for cleaning, and that will also let you take the towers and lift them on up. You're going to be able to set all 9 screws. Just set them in a cup or something, set them aside so you don't lose them. All right, now we're ready to take all of the screws out of the top of the garden, and so that you can get ready to take all the columns apart for that deep cleaning and or hose change that you're going to be doing. Now, one thing I want you to notice, when you take these apart, the water line does not go here. It goes in this one and this one, depending on the angle that this is going to be placed. So if it's offset this way, it goes this one. If it's offset this way, it goes that one. And they go back and forth all the way up the tower so that the water line makes pretty much a straight line all the way from top to bottom. At this point, you're going to save this water line that you've now taken out of the garden, and you're going to want to keep it to make the measurement for the new water line. This piece, I believe, is actually some kind of flow restrictor. This water line is slightly larger than the ones that I'm replacing it with, so I'm not putting these flow restrictors back on, but I don't know if I'll need them or not, so I'll wait and see if I actually need them. Now I'm using this green water line like this, and you can use whatever you want. This is very flexible, and it's actually made for hydroponics. And when I measured it, I came up with 54 inches, but I'm also going to use the water line, and I'm just going to pull it, and it's going to be about this long, but I'm going to make it about 2 or 3 more inches longer, just in case, and that's going to give me a little bit of extra play. These little white dudes, I believe they're flow restrictors. They are very difficult to get off. You pretty much need some kind of sharp instrument or painter's tool to wedge in right here and then push them apart, and they will come off, but they are not any fun to take apart. All right, now that we've got all of the towers apart and we've got the water lines cut and removed, we're going to move to the underneath side. And here we're just going to drop the pump, and we're going to gently pull the big hose off of the blue splitter and off of the pump. We're going to keep that to measure it for the replacement. And then we're going to replace all of those black hoses there and make them a little longer than they were, long enough to stick about 2 or 3 inches up into the top of the column, so you're not fighting when you go to do a disassembly. Now you're going to want to rebuild your splitter and put all of that back together inside the garden lid. You might want to use a heat gun or a hairdryer to get the hoses on. They might be a little stiff. Heat the hose up just a little bit, not too much. And they tend to slide right on. Now we're going to reinstall the splitter and just thread it back through. And we're going to let the extra line that we cut go up into each hole. There. The splitter goes right like that. We're going to trim each of these pieces off to about 2 inches, right about here, right there, right in there somewhere, and then we'll add straights rather than 90-degree elbows. All right, we're about halfway through, and we're going to add the 90-degree, or excuse me, the straight pieces. They look like this, whereas the elbow looks like that. And we're going to put the straight pieces in because we're not going way down deep into the tank through the top to connect the hoses from the tower. So I'm just going to cut off about that much, leaving about this much left on each piece. And then I'm going to install each of these straight pieces inside here. And I'm not using any heat because they go in pretty good. When you're all done, it should look about like this. Now you're going to want to attach your 3 ice cream cones back on. And every place there was a screw, it's going to be slightly wrinkled so that you can see where the screw went. There's actually 4 tabs, but you're only going to use 3 of them. And you're going to reroute the hose back through this piece. So it's going to go about like this. Now with the ice cream cones attached, we're going to want to hook up the new hose from the splitter down to the pump. Then I want to come up under the power cable and push it on to the splitter and bring it down around to the pump. Plug it in nice and tight, kind of paying attention to how it all goes together so that it'll tuck up in there nicely like that. And that'll work real well. Now I'm going to set the tower up on the, back up in the tub. I'm going to start putting it all back together again. And be real careful, dropping it in. I've put some books in the bottom to kind of hold things. All right, now we're going to start attaching our hose. Now, this is where it gets kind of interesting. So I'm going to take this piece that goes in this first one, and I'm going to lock it in. And it locks in like that. And now I look down and I'm going to look at which hole I'm going to start with. There are 2 holes, and I'm going to be starting with that one, because that's the one, when it's turned this way, that's closest to the back. So I'm going to take and just press this on the fitting. And these are the new straight fittings. See how nice that is? I don't have to reach down in there. And we'll just thread this through this hole. in, lock it down. Now this one is actually in the back. And you're going to make a straight line all the way up, which means you're going to take the next piece and it's going to go this way. So it's going to go not in this hole, it's going to go in this hole. And you're going to work your way all the way to the top. Back and forth, alternating the holes because they alternate the twist directions. And you're going to go all the way to the top with that, with all three towers, putting it all together. You're going to get to the top and you're going to have about 6 inches left at the top. All the line is down in there. But pretty much it's going to run a straight line right down the back if you've lined it up through all the holes. And you should have enough to make it work. And you can see down inside there how nicely that is, and my connector is right there. Instead of way down inside the ice cream cone, it's way up high now. Now I found with these pieces that when we took them out, they were like this. But with this new hose, I found that they do better if you put them in like this, because the new hose is just a little thinner. And I created a nice little loop at the top, and I cut off about that much more after I made the loop. But this way, it is not touching the bottom at all, and it's not over top of any of the holes, either the watering hole or the tube routing hole. So it's going to fill up there real nice. So all I got to do is put the top on and build the other three towers. And that's the last two attached. And all the towers are built, and the numbers, you can see them on there. Start at 11 at the bottom and just go up. That way when you take it apart, you can put it back together just like it was. I'm going to put the last caps on, and I'll attach the light rails according to the manual, and we'll be ready to go. All right, and that is all it takes to change your water line and get things going again. That way you get a very clean system. If you change it, you get no kind of spores or any kind of bacteria that might be living in the tubes. Or if you had cracked tubes, that's something else you want to deal with. And so you have no water leaks going up the columns. And we replace the water lines all the way from the top, all the way to the splitter, and then a larger line all the way from the splitter down to the pump. The tube on the pump is an 8mm internal diameter, and it works very well. Found that on Amazon, and all of these links I'm going to put in the description of the video. Man, I hope you got something out of this. I hope it helps some people out. And man, I'll be talking to you later. I've got a few more videos I want to produce that are going to help a lot of people in being able to put their gardens together and get more success out of their growing.